let's get started. I've got some questions. I'm not going to go too deep into anything, guys, but if you have any questions or want to talk about something, we can. I got a couple people here that's chiming in, talking to me. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate all the professionals on here that's helping me through this. David, I see you. Smooth Virus, how you doing, man? Namiko, how are you? And D-Truth, thank you guys for your messages. I'm going to be reading some of these. The first one is, do you believe risk management framework would be a good way to build a cyber compliance program or department from the ground up? It depends on the department, I would say, David. It really depends on what you're trying to do. I would say it's a good place to know where to go, what kind of controls need to happen. But if you're building a department from the ground up, probably one of the places you want to look at, let me see if I can find it real quick. One of the places you're going to want to look at, well, actually, this is a good one. The CyberSecurity framework is a good one to look at. So Nist CyberSecurity framework focuses more on the business needs. Let me switch this Facebook. It focuses more on business needs and how those tie into the Nist 853 controls. Let me show you what I'm talking about if I can. Framework, core, downloadable presentation. Let me see if I want to find some visuals so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, because it's got a really good mapping. It talks about business needs and then maps those directly to the families of controls, and then also maps those to other frameworks. And so if I can get oh shoot, I just downloaded it 3 times. My bad. Yeah, I'll wait for that to download. My internet's pretty slow right now. But yeah, another one would be Itil. Itil is a good one. Framework. Itil talks about exactly what you're talking about. And Itil breaks down what things should be in a department. Let me see if I can find a good one here. Make sure I'm not lying to you. Oh man, my internet's really bad, man. I live in a rural area and our internet is really bad here. It's so bad. I don't even know how. My whole life depends on the internet, and I have to deal with this slow internet. Man, it's crazy. Okay, so yeah, Itil is a pretty good breakdown of what you need for our services and strategies. It's worth your time to look at. And I'm trying to find, there's one where it breaks down each department. It breaks down departments and what's needed in each one of those departments. What each department does, everything. So Itil is something to look at. Look, it's talking about operations, transition, design, strategy. It's the whole, it's definitely worth your time to look at it. It goes from very basic to pretty complex. Let me see if I can find another good breakdown of the Itil process. It's talking about all the things that you do in a center. Let me see. There's one really good breakdown where it talks about each one of the. So let me just show you here real quick. So service operations is talking about incident management. See, that's something that you would need a department. It's event management, problem management, request fulfillment. You're talking about ticketing. You're talking about dealing with difficult issues with technology. All of these things you need to actually manage an operations center or a department. So this is probably talking about what you would want to see. Another one would be the Nist CyberSecurity framework, which was developed some years ago based on these acts right here. I might go through this one very thoroughly at some point, but what I want to show you is this process here. It's kind of similar to the Itil, where it's kind of overarching, talking about what business needs you need to do. Identify, for example, is talking about identifying what your baseline is. What is your software? What software do you have in your environment? What hardware you have in your environment? What ports, protocols, and services you have in your environment? What traffic you have in your environment? Those kinds of things, right? Asset management. Super important, because if you don't have a baseline, you can't really have a security posture. If you don't know what's in your network, how can you secure what you don't know about? So identity is super important. Then you talk about, once you've identified it, now you're talking about protection. Do you have a firewall? Do you have a host-based firewall? Do you need them? Do you have an IPS IDS? Do you have things to protect do you have a baseline to actually secure those systems if they did get hacked, to make sure that they're updated with the current processes. Then you got detect. Detect is dealing with things like what I talked about the other day, which is incident response. Do you have a SOC? Do you have a place, an organization, a part of your organization that actually looks for incidents, right? And then how do you respond? This is incident handling. How do you actually respond? Once you've detected it, how do you respond? And then how do you recover if you do see, like, if you got hacked or something like that, a disaster recovery? Do you have backups? Do you have a disaster recovery plan? Do you have an incident response team? And how do you manage those? So these are dealing with more like business needs, and then these can tie into the actual controls, which I'm going to show you in a second here. Let me see if I could. Here you go. Here, this is exactly what I was looking for. Let me show you how this ties in. So if you're talking about setting up a department from scratch, you probably want to think about doing the cybersecurity framework. Nist cybersecurity framework. Not to be confused with the Nist 853 or the Nist 37. It's different, and here's why. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So look at this. So remember we talked about identity, protect, detect, and recovery, all those, right? This right here is focusing on one aspect of the cybersecurity framework, protect. So what it first of all explains what it is: identity management, identity authentication, and access controls, right? This is how we protect the assets that we have discovered. We're managing the identity, and that's the usernames, and then we're managing the authentication, that's the passwords, and then access controls. So this is protection, is protecting access to the physical and logical assets to associated facilities, and is limited to authorized users, right? Making sure that the assets, any access to them, is limited to authorized users. And so that's what it is, protection via access controls. And then it breaks it down further, the subcategories of protect. There's PR.AC6, which is identifies and proofed and bound to credentials and asserted interactions. Okay, so let me just explain what's going on here. So see this area here, information references. So this is referencing not only NIST 853, right, which is the NIST standard that you talked about, that you asked about, but it's also referencing the CIS controls, COBITS, ISA, ISO 27001, and you can just go on and on. It mentions PCI compliance at some point and everything. So the direction you are going is kind of looking at you could totally do that. You could just look at NIST and then go through the controls and then set up everything based off of that. But this is kind of doing half the work for you, because they're saying here's the business needs, and this business need, we have to not only identify what assets we have, but we have to manage those assets and who has access to those resources, to those assets, right, with access controls. So that's what this is doing. And then it's mapping those to an individual control. See this right here, AC1, AC2, AC3, AC all the way to PS3, PE2. That's a physical control, making sure you have physical controls in place. So this is probably where you would start. But Itil is also a really good one as well. So just go, if you want to find this, go to Google and search for NIST Cybersecurity Framework. And that's where you can actually set up an entire department based off of that. I hope that helps.